Sorry, Ellen, I skipped over solicitor's report.
Okay, just like I wasn't at the last meeting. Yeah. No, okay, well, the first thing is that we should announce that we did meet in executive session briefly before the meeting, and the purpose was to discuss a couple different items. One is pending litigation filed by Range Resources against the township. That was discussed. Mr. Kendall was not present for that portion of it. And then we also discussed the issue of withdrawal from the Act 13 litigation, and also the subject of potential legal matters involving a water line contract. So those were discussed in executive session, and then I can report on some of these matters as well. With regard to the Act 13 case, at the meeting in the beginning of January, you asked us to withdraw the township from that case. We looked into the procedure for that. That case is currently still pending before the Supreme Court, and it does require a little bit of maneuvering to get you out of the case because there are a lot of parties involved, and the case is likely to be remanded from the Supreme Court back down to the Commonwealth Court in the not too distant future. And from what we understand, we would have to withdraw again when the case goes back down. So our recommendation is that we not do anything right now. We're not actively participating necessarily. The cases, and our name isn't going to be, even if we withdraw, the name is still on the case. So you can't erase the name from, the case will still, as much as some of you might not like it, the case will still be known as the Robinson Township case. So my suggestion is that we wait until the case gets back to the Commonwealth Court, and then we withdraw from it, so we only have to do this once. So that's my report on that. If you disagree, we can go through the hoops of doing it twice, but I think we should just do it once. With regard to you had asked also at the last meeting for us to look into the procedures that were used regarding the adoption of the zoning ordinance, which was adopted late in December. We did look at that, and there was some detail here because it had gone through a couple of public hearings. Our conclusion is that the ordinance was validly enacted procedurally. We did not look we didn't look at the substance of the ordinance because we were not asked to do that, but procedurally we believe that the ordinance that was passed on December 23rd is a valid procedural ordinance at this point in time. With regard to the water line matter, at the meeting that I was not at on January 20th, there was a motion, it says here, to have me cease the water line contract until it's found to be valid. I mean, what we did was we sent a letter to the water company that indicated to them that we were researching whether or not that contract could be voided by the new Board of Supervisors. Since then, I've had contact with counsel for the water company as late as this afternoon, and the counsel for the water company has indicated that if it's the township's desire to do so, that they will renegotiate that contract with the township to change the scope of the project, to lessen the project, so that I got that news this afternoon, and I will be confirming that in writing with their attorney. So if that's what the board wants to do, my suggestion would be that you move on that quickly. She indicated that the engineer for the water company would be willing to work with us to revamp it, so we would end up with basically a different contract, and then we would have to work out what that would be worth. There'd be bid done, and how much of the money that the township would get back. So if that's what you're going to do, I would suggest moving on that quickly. And I think that's all I had to report on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anybody else?
Hi,
Sorry, go ahead, Mrs. Vance.
Brenda Vance. I know Jesse White contacted the water company, and the comments that they got back, they couldn't say much, and their lawyers were looking into the changes that you guys requested. And I'd just like to know what changes you are requesting regarding the water lines, what you're looking into there.
Well, earlier in the meeting, we had appointed to have Mr. Grant and Mr. Barron's work with them to see what we could come up with that is more practical for the township to live with than what was originally signed. So where that'll be, I have no clue at this time.
You don't have any idea what you're...
It all depends on how the conversation goes with them, which as soon as we have an update, we'll let everybody know. So,
We'll be working very diligently to get this project finished. To finish the, I shouldn't say project finish, I should say to get this process, I'll be calling it tomorrow, to put it that way. We're working diligently on this project.
Will you call everyone who's going to be affected? We're affected.
I will make a comment at the general meetings.
Are you trying to...
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you were done, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are you trying to void it completely?
We will be contacted tomorrow, and we will see where it goes from there. That's all I can say at this time.
Do you realize how much legal...
Mr. Schenkel, your time is up.
Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 questions. The first one, the waste management or the garbage pickup that you're trying to implement, will that also include recycling?
That was a possibility. The issue was brought forward, we were told that there were multiple residents that could not get garbage pickup.
Okay.
So we put it out on the website to see what, who can't get garbage. And we had one person reply, and Mr. Grant had spoke with multiple garbage companies in the process of this, and most of them said they'll pick up anyway. So I'm not sure.
Can they do recycling too? I guess that's my question. I know there's no recycling out here mainly because it wasn't...
We had, I don't think you were at the one meeting we talked about it. We had mentioned if we went that route, that would maybe be an option, maybe not. If not, we had talked about also possibly putting a recycle dumpster here at the township building where people could bring stuff to it. But again, we haven't got any kind of pricing or anything yet, so.
Okay.
But if everybody's able to get garbage service, then, free market is obviously always the best competitor as
Right.
opposed to forcing everyone to go with one. The issue was that there were people, we were told that there were people who couldn't get it, and again, R&K said that they would pick up anywhere in this township. So,
Do they do recycling too? We haven't looked into that.
well, they're actually...
They'll be here next month, Kat,
to talk about
to
that.
review all that with
That'd be
us.
great. Okay, my other question is that, and Mr. Solicitor, you weren't here at the meeting, I understand, but Mr. Kendall had mentioned about the water line, there were red flags, and that's why you wanted the project ceased. Can you explain to us what the red flags are in the contract?
I don't think it was that I wanted the project ceased, but I think the issue here, the issue had to do with the prior board and whether, there's a new board now. The contract was entered into, relatively late in the board's, the prior board's term. And the question had to do with whether or not that contract would bind this board, and that's what I was looking at. And, that was the issue. And like I said earlier, I communicated with the water company's attorney as late as this afternoon, and they are definitely willing to work with the township on modifying what's on the table. And I think we heard earlier that that's what, at least, I think that's what the board wants to do.
To keep this board from being, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding though, that the contract was made, but your red flags had to do with this board's
Well, let me step in. The
Okay.
red flag was actually like my word,
Okay.
which I may have misspoke when I stated that. And we actually had no intention of putting anything to a vote, but we had resistance from the audience, and they insisted we vote, so we voted. And the statement that I initially made was that the solicitor saw a problem, I used the word red flag,
Okay.
with the contract, and the issue is the avoidability of it due to, you can't bind a future board with a contract. That's the issue.
Thank you.
It would be no different than if we signed a 20-year contract with something, we've just tied up the next 20 years before, you can't do that. So,
Okay.
Anyway, that's the,
Well, there's
That's
one
it in a
other
nutshell.
thing that I could mention, and that in the time that I've been practicing law, I had never seen a contract before where the entire balance of a large project like this was paid up front, handed over without any type of retainage or progress payments or anything like that, and that was something else that I felt, was certainly not standard procedure that I've seen in construction type contracts.
What do you mean, meaning it was paid for already?
Yes.
Yes, the township wrote a check in October or November for the entire balance of the entire contract up front in advance of any work being done on the project. So that was another issue that I felt was something that, that in combination with the change in the board were things that I had looked at.
Okay.
So,
Okay, and
with,
one,
I'm sorry, let me finish one thing. With the paragraph that left any and above expenses on us, which on a $776,000 contract, even if you go 10% over, it's still another $77,000, and we have, 38 grand. You're gonna have a bake sale to pay the lights, so that's part of the issue.
wait, can I have one more question, sorry.
Hey, quick.
I just wanted, again, because you're here, Mr. Solicitor, can you please explain the ramifications of Act 13 if we have if it's upheld or if it's challenged? Can you explain to us, in layman's terms, please, what it means?
I don't know. I mean, this has been going on for several years. The Supreme Court recently ruled that the provisions under Act 13 that took away local zoning control from municipalities was invalid and was unconstitutional. That's been ruled upon. It's already been ruled upon. There are other provisions of Act 13 that the court did not address yet, and I can't tell you what all of those are, but there is still some portion of the case that is still pending. But I think what most people understand as the main thrust of the case has already been ruled on by the highest court in the Commonwealth. And so that's already occurred, and that means that this township, boroughs, cities, townships, all over the Commonwealth do not necessarily have to follow the exact things that Act 13 had set forth in terms of restrictions, and you can have your own ordinance. Now, your own ordinance is still going to have to be legal in other respects and cannot regulate how to do drilling, for example. That would be regulated by the state. But in terms of placement and some other issues, we have an ordinance here right now. Other places have ordinances, so the Supreme Court struck down a good portion of that law.
So in other words, with Act 13, we can still regulate, or you're saying if it's challenged, we can regulate?
The Supreme Court's already ruled. It's been challenged.
No, I'm just asking you, I'm still trying to understand this process. Is
All right.
that what?
I don't think I can explain it any better than I already did, and perhaps I'm not explaining it well enough, but that's the best I can do right now.
We gotta,
You're not going to explain it.
Quint Jones again. Mr. Kendall partially answered my question, but would you be able to put out the total money that was paid to West Penn Water to put in the water lines both on Nature Way and Steubenville Pike?
You mean the monetary value for PA American Water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What the checks were written for?
It was $776,850 out of the account.
How about Nature's Way?
That was total.
That was total.
That's total. So, That was your total amount. It took our account down to $24,000. We received a check from Berkheimer after that, which was for $50,000. And if we did not receive that check from Berkheimer, we would have no more
We would be $12,000
in debt right now.
Yeah, one more.
yes, sir.
Is the water line going to go on road right-of-ways, or do personal or private right-of-ways have to be purchased?
Well, then Steubenville Pike, it should be state highway right away. Since it's a township road, it's going to be.
Well, but all of the roads that were originally included are township or
state.
So the township wouldn't have to purchase any private right-of-ways in addition to the contract money?
No.
No.
Who signed the checks, excuse me, for that project?
That was before us.
I didn't see.
Mr. Cole and myself.
Okay.
Ms. Vance?
Wasn't over 50% of that state grant?
No, there was no grants whatsoever. We
Nothing.
paid out of pocket.
None of that was grant?
The original cost of the line was $935,307 total. PA American Water does a tap-in fee credit, which was so you get $10,500 per customer for a tap-in. They estimated 15 customers. And they did and the township enacted a 200-foot tap-in fee, mandatory tap-in. So if you were within 200 feet, your dwelling was within 200 feet, you had to tap in. Reading the MPC, I believe it's only 150, so I don't know if they were allowed to go over 150 and say 200, if that's over, would that be overstating state law then?
I would have to look at that.
Okay, so looking at that, 15 homes that they counted, I couldn't get 15 homes within 200 feet. So then that would drop further. We would get less credit, and that $776,000 would go up. We would be on the line for more of $800,000 roughly is what we would be on if people that were outside that 200-foot mark didn't tap in at that time. So total project without tap-in fee was $935K. After the $858,000 from American Water for tap-ins, it came to $776,000. In doing so, we drained CDs in the township, the Ag 13 money from the township, the capital improvement fund from the township, and drained the general account after that down to $24,000. So bringing a township down to, people have more in their retirement fund than we have right now in the township, all because of a water line, serving 15 residents out of 2,000. So that's my answer, Ms. Vance.